Hello, pyramid energy. Where does one even begin? I feel like I've been gone for a year, and when I look at the dates, it's been a week, just over a week. In general, I would say that I've been dealing with growing pains. Even starting this audio, I've experienced so much resistance. I've probably been trying to record something for 2 days. And so yesterday I decided, let me start writing again. I won't show up on Pyramid Energy if I don't feel like I have any light to shed. But now I do. These growing pains have felt like there are so many ways I could describe this. They've felt like this concept of moving house, like being told, listen, there's a new house for you. It's smaller than the current house you live in, but you'll have a view of the ocean. And so what happens when you're moving house, when you're packing up? You've got to pack up all the boxes. You've got to pack everything up. You also can't take everything with you. Nobody's rushing you. The house that you're in is still available to you, and the other one will be ready when you're ready. But you have to downsize. And what this means is that you have to go through the boxes, even the stuff that you don't really want to deal with and you don't really want to look at. You can't just take that box and put it on the street and wait for people to pick up stuff or just sell it because there might be something in the box that you need. And so this process of having to downsize and organize everything and take with you what's important and what will fit in your new space with a better view, this is not something you can do by remote control. You can't get anyone else to do it for you. You have to do it yourself. You also have to put off other stuff that you usually do with your time because this requires your attention. And the longer you delay it, you're aware that you're actually delaying living where you want to live. I've also seen this and processed this as moving through a dark tunnel. Everything is just dark and you've got to move through. And yes, there is light at the end of the tunnel, but that there's distance. There's distance. And so as you move through this dark space, that's the space where I've had no light to shed. And I suppose the only way I could really deal with it is through my presence. This moving house and this dark tunnel also has a lot of events that play out around me, like around me, around you, if this message is speaking to you. And it's as if these events are divinely orchestrated to put you in particular scenarios, situations where you're forced to deal with parts of yourself that you thought you could sort of ignore. Some you didn't even know existed maybe. So that's actually partly what's being brought to light. And these events beg the question, what's at stake? What's at stake? Because you want to maintain your integrity, and this is not actually integrity around other people, it's integrity with yourself. You want to stay true to yourself, but you're operating in an arena where maybe others don't see things the way you see them. Not only do they not see things the way you see them, what drives their actions, their behavior, is not how you would. And so ordinarily one would easily rather just move away from that situation and go somewhere else, move to somewhere where this problem doesn't exist, distance yourself from it. But these scenarios are coming up in areas that are unavoidable, which tells me that they're being called, they're like being cued to force you to deal with this part of you. There are two analogies that have come up for me and I'm going to share them. I just want to summarize. The first one is a snake in the grass, which was an experience I had today. And the second one is around lessons I learned. I was led to the book of John, and this was today as well. And the book of John, while the story is told a certain way in terms of Jesus's movements, there are definitely lessons there around how to return to love and how to return to God and the things that create distance. I decided today that I needed to, do some grounding. So I took my notebook, took my cards, went out into the garden, and I sat in my usual spot. So in this spot, the flower bed is behind me. The bird bath is in front of me with obviously some grass in between. After sort of diving into the cards, in the corner of my eye to my right, I felt some kind of creature move across. And, I was left with a lot of solving to do around what was that. It was within the flower bed. I didn't see it, but I saw its movement and I saw how it moved the leaves. Because of the impact it had on the leaves, I could feel the energy of whatever creature this was, that it was too heavy to be like a dragonfly, but sort of small enough to not really be visible because I couldn't see it. And it moved across like a half a meter in the space of maybe I'd say 1 full second. So it was swift. And so I knew it wasn't a bird because a bird doesn't fly, across within the plants. Like it would have created more of like a, hustle bustle around there. And it would have needed more time. And just as I was connecting with what I'd observed, I stood up and I looked at those plants. I stared to make sure, to see if there's still any movement. I spent some time here to see if there's movement like anything else moving, and to realize that whatever it is not visible. But I'll tell you, I could see it looking at me. I could feel it looking at me. And the words snake in the grass came up. And when I heard those words, I was like, that's exactly what it was. I was certain that's exactly what it was. However, we have no snakes in the garden. It wasn't a snake because I would have found the snake. I'm not saying I would have touched it or anything. I'm just saying I would have been able to see it. So whatever it was had that kind of like energy, but disappeared, at least from my side. As I was connecting with this idea, I thought to myself, how did I show up in that moment? In that moment, I didn't gaslight myself. I didn't convince myself that it's nothing, okay? Because it was something. And the idea of a snake in the grass has this deceptive sort of appeal to it. It has a deceptive feel to it. And for me to stand up and look and stare speaks to how one should show up when dealing with what could be a snake in the grass. If you know there's a snake in the grass, how do you show up? You stand up, you face it. You cannot turn around and carry on as if you didn't just see what you saw, feel what you felt. You can't turn your back to it, otherwise it's going to bite you in the back. So you've got to face it, acknowledge it, let it know that you're staring it down and you know it's there. And beyond that, fold up your towel, take your cards and your bottle of water and go back into the house, perhaps somewhere else. Because it's there. I then went on to, as I'm connecting with what does this mean? What else is it saying? I looked up the story of the snake in the grass because something came to me and I was like, this snake in the grass is actually an expression. It's not just the idea of a snake in the grass. It's an expression. So I looked up the story. I'm going to summarize it. But the story goes, it's a kid's story. It has a lesson in it. The story goes, there's a family in their home and a guy cycling past and he knocks and he says, guys, I saw a snake in your garden. You got to watch out. That's dangerous. And so they're just like in disbelief, but they get worried. So the cyclist leaves, carries on with his life. Then they go out and they look for the gardener, and they're like, dude, there's a snake in the grass. Like, why do you leave this grass to grow so high? Now look, now we can't even see if there's a snake in the grass. And the gardener is like offended, and he's like, I've been asking you guys for a grass cutter forever, and you don't listen to me, and now look, and everyone's blaming everyone. Then some guy, some statistician or whatever, comes and shows them the stats of like how dangerous, how ways in which snakes can hurt you, you know, the danger. So they get even more freaked. They then threaten to fire this gardener, like, you know, you're lazy, you know, they berate him. There's more to the story, but after having enough, basically, the gardener comes into the house. He's holding a pot with the lid on, and he says, guys, I found the snake. I caught the snake. Here it is. By the way, in the background, they hear about or a snake whisperer, some guy who claims to be a snake whisperer offers his help. But he says, guys, I can only help you if you show me where the snake is. If you can't show me where the snake is, I can't help you. So the gardener comes in with this pot. Guys, caught the snake. And they're all just so relieved, so happy with him. So the gardener leaves with his pot. And 5 minutes later, the youngest boy in the family screams, there's the snake. So now what's left? This family is left questioning whether the gardener lied. Were there two snakes? Are there two snakes? Or, you know, was the pot empty? And the moral of the story that's written here is trust, but verify. And so this, for me, the bigger meaning of this is, you know, the reason they didn't ask him to open the pot is because everyone's scared of the snake. You know, you open the pot now, we're in trouble. It feels like a Pandora's box type of scenario, you know. And unfortunately, the result of that is that you never really get to the bottom of it. And the reason why this gardener presented a pot with a snake may be because he doesn't really want to deal with all this heckling and criticism, you know. Another thing that it says in this story, you know, when the boy shouts out, you know, there's the snake. Straight after that, you know, the snake disappears. It basically looks at the gathering, crawls under the gate, and leaves. So this is the thing, is that I feel some of these, whatever this energy is, needs to be looked at. It needs to be looked at. It is there, is all I can gather right now, you know, given just, you know, from my perspective. If the pot is not opened, you won't confirm that there's a snake. The snake might still be out on the loose. If you don't confront the snake and call its presence out, the one in the garden or in the grass, it may never leave. It remains a danger. This story is very difficult. This message, I find it very difficult to share. But the truth of the matter is that these things come up. These things come up along the way. And they tend to come up, you know, in divine timing, when it's time for you to deal with your surroundings and how you're going to show up in your surroundings, how you're going to stay true to yourself within your surroundings. When I ask the question, what is at stake? This is, for me, you know, a rude awakening is wanting to stay in your comfort zone, dealing with things the way you've always dealt with them, but realizing that because you are actually being untrue to yourself, it brings up like, why am I being untrue to myself? And not just that, that taints everything else you do. Because, you know, these are matters of the heart. And so when you're not acknowledging the heart and when you're not being honest with the heart, you remain in the dark. You remain in the dark. I feel like I'm now managing to link this to the lessons I found in the book of John. And because I opened this video and I was like, this recording, and I was not sure if these things link together. And I feel it now, especially when I speak about darkness. In the book of John, the reason I went there was because I Googled the words, "The truth shall set you free." I downloaded these words. And so I Googled because I felt like, this sounds like it's from the Bible. It led me to the book of John, the 8th. What do you call this? Is it a chapter? And I think it was around verse 33 or whatever, they address the truth shall set you free. There's quite a preamble to this concept of the truth shall set you free. So I had to go back to John 7, John 6, John 5, and kind of gather this string of what's actually happening. And so without reading the Bible to you, what I'll say is that this part of the Bible deals mostly with, Jesus's miracles. A few of his miracles are in there. One that stood out a lot for me was the one where he heals the blind man, his vision. Been blind his whole life, Jesus, brings his sight back. And it also deals with not just the miracles, but the conversations that Jesus then has with his people. I believe lots of conversations with his disciples, and a lot of interrogation. I'm not sure if it's the Jews. Guys, my Bible knowledge is poor. I'm just going to say it. I take what calls me, and I draw the essence from it. And also in line with, I suppose, the message that I seek, the truth that I seek. And this interrogation he's dealing with these people that are asking him a lot of questions. Everyone's doubting whether he is the Messiah, and he keeps reinforcing and reiterating that he's of God and he's of the truth. And please, not verbatim. I feel like this needs a disclaimer, but that he's of the truth, and that the reason they cannot actually believe him, because his words are God's words, all of that, they cannot believe him because they basically are answering to their father. He answers to his father being the Son, and they are answering to their father being the devil. So I unpack this concept a bit more for myself. And what keeps coming out is this concept of these ideas around shame and guilt, and these confusing feelings, relationship with oneself, where they do not see themselves clearly, that distance them from the truth being that love is available, that love can perform miracles, that love, all it asks is to be seen in its truth, and for everything else to be removed so that it can be seen. And that the path of the devil is one of death. It's one of death. And I feel that very deeply for myself, because these things, shame, doubt, fear, guilt, these are coming up to die. They are coming up to die. And the more of them that I'm dealing with them head on, the closer I'm being brought back into love. And so this is a huge lesson on the importance of self-love. The importance of dealing with, why do you berate yourself? Why are you so hard on yourself? Why do you set such high expectations on yourself? Look around. And this comes up as well in the book of John. It comes up like, look around. Like, who else is casting doubt here but you? Like, you're the one doubting yourself. The path of love is the path of everlasting life. It's the path of miracles. It's been proven. Now, if you go according to, all this evidence of these miracles, you've already seen all the things that can happen in your life. You've seen these miracles being performed. And now here you are, you're still doubting. There's also this whole thing around the blind man. Jesus puts mud on his eyes and says, go, dip yourself in that river and you'll be able to see after this. So there's this idea that this man has never been able to see, and to heal him, mud gets put on his eyes. So it's as if like, for me, mud is like he mixes saliva with the sand on the ground or whatever and puts it in his eyes. It's like this idea of like, why the hell would I put mud on my eyes? Why would I do that? And this feels like, for me, why am I when you're doing something that feels unnatural and you're doing it, you've got that curiosity where you're going to find something out about yourself that you need to know. And so you're also acting in a very unnatural way. But because you don't really have options, you kind of have to try this, And so you try it, and then, boom, you can see. And so this is like, you've got to be willing to put the yucky stuff on your eyes to actually begin to really see. I was blind and now I can see. There's also a greater story here for me around, just the restoration of vision when one feels like they're in the dark. This darkness is created for a purpose. This time, unlike other times, I have just not approached this dark tunnel the same way. It is different to all other dark tunnels because I am dealing purely with myself. That's how I feel. I feel like all I'm doing is dealing with my relationship to myself, the way I speak to myself, the conversations I have with myself. We're doing a proper final clean out because, I'm moving house. I'm going to go live with a view of the ocean. Smaller, but way better. Like, you don't have to ask me twice. But this growth, it asks a lot. It promises more, but it asks a lot. And unlike other choices, it also does not allow for you to stay in the places that you're in comfort. It does not allow you to stay comfortable. The difference between how I'm dealing with this now to other times is because, I've embraced this. I've embraced it. I'm like, rest. You do not have the answers. I've embraced this because I've been here before, in this sense. Not same scenario, but I've been here where I put my cards in front of me and I can't see anything. And those have been the most pivotal parts of my spiritual journey. I've also been dealing with this thing where I shuffle to no end. I just keep shuffling. And what happens is like I shuffle until I stop. So something inside me makes me feel like the shuffling is done, the cards are ready, I can start laying them. So it's usually this process. But what's been happening is that like I get a flash of a card and I carry on shuffling and carry on another flash of a card. So I get these bitty messages. And when I finally lay the cards out, I did this week, I finally lay the cards out, and I also did a chakra reading on myself. And I also did a chakra check-in, on my own energy centers to check what is happening in each chakra. My interpretation of what was happening in each chakra was contradictory to what the cards were saying. The message here for me was that, how you feel, and how you're understanding your feelings and how you're speaking to yourself, you're not seeing yourself correctly. You are mistaken. There are a lot of things that we just want you to bring to the surface that we need to show you about yourself. These are the things that I am needing to learn, either to undo, heal, resolve, before I move to this apartment that's waiting for me with the ocean view. It's a difficult process. I'm sharing this very much from my own voice, and that sounds so weird. This is me sharing my experience. These words come from a very raw place. It's still raw. It's a rawness I cannot ignore. I have to honor each piece, each part. It can't be rushed. The more I rush it, the more I'm resisting the process that's taking place. The presence of a snake, again, represents transformation. It's an opportunity. But But I'm not approaching this like firstly a card reading, because, I'm going to shuffle the cards and I don't know what's going to happen. And I just didn't feel like this one needed cards. It was a bigger message, because this is a huge process taking place. And what I was trying to say is that I'm sharing it from myself and I've brought it here because I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. And I experienced so much resistance bringing this here, because it feels like I'm opening this pot. It feels like I'm opening this pot. What's coming in for me now is, guys, I want to tell you about the dangers of gaslighting. People gaslight us and we gaslight ourselves. I have to share this, okay? These are the difficult conversations to have. What happens? I want to talk about this topic. I then shy away from it and end up not talking about it because it puts me on a spotlight. Okay, that's shame. That's what shame looks like. And that's what shame appears to achieve. That's what it comes up to achieve. Shame is, let's call it a tool of the devil being what is not loving, what is not affirming, what brings doubt and confusion into your system so that you cannot see clearly, and so that you cannot see clearly how lovable you are. The way I like to explain gaslighting, because, for a long time I kept hearing this term, not really, before I engaged with this concept of the N word. I don't even want to go there. But this concept of gaslighting, I like to imagine it as someone lets off gas, like that gas you use for cooking or whatever, lets off gas in front of you. And then maybe they offer you something, or like a cigarette, let's say, and then they're like, please light it. And then you light it, and then flames. And then they act like, oh, I wonder how that happened. And you're like, well, you're the one you must have put gas here. There's only two of us. You put gas. And they're like, no, I didn't. It's like that. Unfortunately, we also do it to ourselves. There are things that just need to be seen and called out, whether that's a part of you, okay? Because one of the lessons of the snake in the grass is the snake represents someone who appears or pretends to be a friend, but is actually dangerous. So this we can connect to it being another person. If a person is gaslighting, they tend to present like a good person. So, they're likable people, the people who get away with this behavior. On the other end, it could actually represent a part of yourself that you think serves you, that you've come to believe, you've come to take on to have as your friend in your life. And it's not your friend. It's not your friend, and it's dangerous. And when I say dangerous, I don't mean to alarm. I say dangerous as in it can do you harm. And by doing you harm, I mean it can distance you from God. And being distanced from God and being distanced from love means that there are a whole lot of then other actions that you then do to inflict on yourself that are unnecessary and that delay your path towards your purpose. These things can even delay your work, what you do, whatever your art is. If you work from the heart, it is so important to keep its environment clean. When I say clean, and I'm glad that I approached it from this direction, because often, like when we bring up the Bible and we bring up Jesus, there's so much religious trauma around these narratives and these things that have been done, in my opinion, very wrong. But the concept of Christ and the concept of Jesus and the concept of cleaning your environment and clean your inner environment and yourself and coming right with you, that's more my understanding of embracing Christ in your life. In this water that surrounds me and that is inside of me, I need to keep doing the filtering and the cleansing and the clearing in order for me to be able to hear God, to hear the Spirit clearly, and to take what the Spirit says and not distort it, to be able to hear the truth, to be able to always know how loved I am, not just how loved I am. I'm loved by me. Okay, first of all, I'm loved by me. I'm loved by God, and I am lovable. I'm lovable. And so that means absolutely nobody should bring that into doubt. When someone brings that into doubt, for you, the fault is no longer with them. The fault sits on you because the gap lay with you. Not opening that pot, not interrogating the matter, not being afraid of the pot, believing what other people say about what's in the pot, whatever that means to you. You do yourself a disservice. This energy that I'm transmuting this week, like I say, I feel like I've been here before, but this is some other kind of stuff. This is some other kind of stuff, okay? The reason I say is because it allows no break, it allows no pause, and it's busy, and it brings things up, and things arise, and you've got to also remember the serenity prayer, the wisdom to know the difference, between the things you can change and the things you can't change. It brings that into your face. Like, can you change that? Otherwise, okay, you wait. You wait. There's nothing you can do. You send it. This one is for God to handle. God, the greater picture, the greater eyes, knows the plan, knows the why, knows the when. I don't have those eyes, and I am being tasked with one job right now, and that is to not be afraid to open the pot. A song that came up for me the first time today when I thought, okay, let's do a collective reading. Took out my cards, shuffle, 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 Sinead O'Connor's song, Nothing Compares to You, came up. This is a love song. But I went and I looked at the lyrics, and the first line, it's been 7 hours and 15 days, since you took your love away. And it immediately hit me. This song is definitely appropriate. When I look at just those first few lyrics, it reminds me of when I look at my YouTube studio, when I last posted a video and it says 7 days and 20 hours. That's what I saw. What's interesting with hers is that she switches it. She counts the hours, then the days. And this speaks to how long it feels like it's taking. And this idea of love being taken away, not really for me, the way I'm interpreting it, not being taken away by someone else, but this is the distance that I've been feeling with myself. And she talks about how she can do whatever she wants. She can be with who she wants. She can eat wherever she wants in a fancy restaurant. She can do whatever she wants. But nothing compares to you. Nothing. The relationship with yourself is the greatest love of all. This time asks for a person to love themselves radically, to look at anything that is a threat to their love for themselves, to face it, to stand up, turn around, say, I see you. Let it slither away. The confrontation is tough on a snake. Of course, it doesn't want to be seen. In fact, it'll appear in the side of your eye, in the garden, almost so clearly you can feel it, you see its movement and the things it moves, but it's invisible. And I know that this is an important stage because one of the readings I did, shuffle, shuffle, shuffle again, this was one of the ones that did reveal something to me. And I just did not have the strength at the time to show up here. I felt like that message felt so out of the blue. I felt like that would be a form of gaslighting you, those of you who watch my content regularly, and especially with how our energy has, often a very similar line, story. I feel like I would be gaslighting you, just showing up out of the blue with good news as if I haven't been away, as if I haven't been dealing. Oh, check, I have. I've been dealing. And this reading revealed very good news. It revealed very good news. I actually wrote this down, and I didn't end up posting it. I wrote it to work with my throat chakra. And so I'm going to read it to you. This is great news. I wrote, I have you here, apprehensive because you are protective over your healing process, being careful about what you hope for and what you expose your heart to. What's crossing you is that you don't want to fight what you are feeling, both energetically and telepathically, because of late, your relationship with your intuition has been affected. There have been changes to it in the recent past, and you just decided to deal with this by accepting that there are changes happening, and instead of resisting this period of blankness, rather resting, honoring the process, especially since you have been here before. This is not your first rodeo. This is the kind of blindness you experience before major changes come in, and you know that you need to honor the rest needed for energetic upgrades, shifts in mindset, and adjustments to your manifestations as you envision them and the ways of thinking that create their structure and makeup. And so that, I'm just going to expand a bit, that is, you're now revisiting your manifestations to ensure that what you have been manifesting aligns with the new version of you. And if you need to expand on your manifestations. At the top of mind, you know something is coming in, but you don't know what it is. You can only sense its magnitude, the level of its nuances, and the depths of which it will change you, the depths at which it will change you. In your subconscious, I see you still wanting to know what it's all about, open to additional opinions around this, and also open to being moved away from ways you usually see things. This means you're becoming open to considering something you previously were just not open to. Your advice is to continue exploring the qualities of what you want, what wish fulfillment looks like to you. There is emphasis on the quality and not the package. For example, how it can be karmically healing for you and whether you'll experience that sense of reciprocity that you've yearned for so long. In your surrounding factors, I have someone here who has reached the conclusion and has clarity that this is what a good life looks like. You fit into their puzzle so much that they have also taken a number of decisions that see them walking away from things they never thought they would ever find the strength to come towards you. With you, they see hope, joy, peace, and growth. You're afraid of your manifestation that you have not kept your eye on and continued monitoring your manifestation. So you're actually worried that you haven't, kept tabs on your manifestation. This is ironic because it wouldn't be coming in if you were still obsessing about it. You wonder to yourself whether you have covered all bases and whether you are equipped to assess it upon its entry, whatever this is, especially now that you feel blind. This is outside of your comfort zone because you are usually razor sharp in your assessment of yourself and of others, energetically, even when it comes to their intentions and true feelings. In your outcome, I see you dealing with your self-love and beginning to celebrate that, breaking out of yourself, stretching yourself. And so there's no conclusion there on this person coming in at this point when I did the reading. There's no conclusion. And this needs to be interpreted because it could be a person coming in or it could be a manifestation. In fact, it could be an actual something you've manifested. And for this reading to end in, this King of Cups and the Six of Wands, those are the two cards that were in the outcome. This brings us back to the work we're doing now. This work is preparation. And I want to leave you with this picture. I want to leave you with this picture of this apartment overlooking the ocean. I want to leave you with that. I want you to connect with the peace that's in this space. I want you to connect with the feeling of having already shedded all of that stuff that was going to weigh you down and clutter your new space, clutter your new life. Make it hard for you to find the things you need and move around and feel like this is a new life for you. I want you to connect with that. Thank you for your patience. And I don't mean the patience in terms of this week that I've been off. The patience in terms of this message, because I resisted. And I do believe that this kind of message is resisted because it is very liberating. These energies, once transmuted, are liberating. That's their intention, to free you, to bring you closer to God, to bring you closer to yourself, to love yourself even more. Especially those of you who people think maybe you love yourself a bit too much and that you add more love, even more on top, please. Sending you love.